Hi, my name is Dave Hideman. I'm the Application Specialist for the Steel segment here at Trimble Solutions. And I just wanted to put together this video to give a little bit of instruction and some advice for inserting different types of reference models, specifically focusing on inserting PDFs. Some reasons you might want to insert some PDF documents is for doing things like estimating, being able to trace over it to lay out your structure, for coordination between your building and other trades. There's several things that you could do with this. Also, I want to touch briefly on inserting other types of reference models and just some tips for getting them into the right place and some other things that we get questions about often. So first off, for the past couple of versions, you've been able to insert a PDF document. Basically, you can go into your File menu, under Import, and then there's the Insert PDF Document option. Now, one of the stipulations about the PDF that's being inserted is it has to be created directly from the source software. It cannot be a scanned PDF. In other words, it has to be a vector PDF. So I actually have a sample here that I can bring in from a customer, just a simple set of structural drawings. And one of the other things that you can do here is I can choose a scale, and I can also choose from a page number. So right away it tells me that this particular PDF has 14 pages. So that is something that you'd want to look at first to make sure that you get the right sheets in, because you want to insert it piece by piece or page by page. So first I'm just going to insert it into regular space. I'm not going to worry about what floor this is on or level or anything like that. But I'm going to set a page number 2 because I happen to know that page number 2 is the first structural sheet. And then you can set a scale. If you know the scale, you can go ahead and set it here. It can always be changed after the fact, not an issue. I'm going to go ahead and use the scale of 1 to 1 because I want to show you another tool that's available to help you find the right scale. So I'll go ahead and I'll click OK. And then it asks me for an insertion point. Now, the insertion point or the origin can be anywhere when it comes to a PDF insertion. One thing that you have to note, however, is that it's going to come in aligned with the current coordinate system. Now, the current coordinate system can be seen down right now in the corner as the red X and Y arrows. The green cube indicates global origin of 0, 0, 0. So right now I can see that my current active coordinate system is in line with my global origin. So anything that I insert is going to be also aligned with global origin. Now for simplicity's sake, I'll go ahead and I'll pick it A1. I could also pick it B1 or C1 or anywhere else I wanted it to come in. So I'll click, and what happens is the PDF gets converted into a DXF file, and then it gets inserted as a reference model. So as you can see, it comes in the true size, 36 by 24 or whatever size it happened to be on the original PDF. This isn't very useful in this size, so we're going to have to scale this up. Now, something that I've done, and this is a personal setting on my computer, is I've changed my inserted reference file color to be blue. I've done this through object representation. So you can contact our support team for more information on how you can set this up. I think by default this should come in as white lines, which I find a little bit hard to read. So I just have it coming in as more of a traditional blue line color. So now that I have this in, you can see that there is some issue sometimes with text because it is a converted file from PDF to DXF format, but that's not really a big deal. I'm more interested in the line locations, dimensioning, and things like that. So one first thing, when you're trying to interact with this inserted reference file, if I try to interact with it and it's with my current settings, I'm going to have problems, whether it's trying to move it or scale it or whatever. And the reason for that is because of this icon being pressed down right here, this select objects in components. The reference file contains multiple elements, and what I'm basically saying right now is rather than grabbing the whole file, I want to grab one of the lines inside the file, which I don't really have control over because it's a reference. So I want to make sure that I select components or press the button for select components. This allows me to grab the reference model as a whole, and now I'll be able to scale it and move it and do whatever it is I need to do. One of the other things you have to make sure of is that you have the Select Reference Models button pressed down on your selection toolbar. If this is not pressed down, you will not be able to highlight that model at all. So you'll come in here and you'll try to click on it and nothing will happen, and you'll just struggle to get it moved into the right place or scaled. So make sure that you have that pressed down. You can either press it down, or as you can see, it pops up some of the other selection icons, so I don't always like to do that. A quick tip is if you hit F2, F2 either deselects all and selects all as far as your icons go. So a quick double tap on that, make sure that select reference models is pressed down, and so is most of the other things I'm going to need. So now that I have that, I can go ahead and scale this up. If I want to, I can double click on it. That's going to open my reference model side pane, giving me some information about this inserted DXF. Remember, it was converted into a DXF file, including the origin and the scale and the rotation. So this is all very important stuff. If I insert it square to global 0 and I need to change the rotation or something after the fact, this is one way I could do it. The scale, if I knew it, I could come in here and simply type in the correct scale and then hit modify down at the bottom, and it would scale up to the right size. I, however, don't know the correct scale, and because this has been printed to a sheet of paper and then converted again to a DXF file, it may have been originally thought of as a 1/8 equals a foot scale, but I'm pretty sure it's probably not anymore. So what we have on the Tekla Warehouse is a tool that you can download. It's one of our extensions called Reference Model Scale. I already have it installed here. If you just go to the warehouse and do a search for reference, you should be able to find this tool. And it's pretty handy. Basically, you double click on it. It's going to activate, and what it's asking me in the bottom left is pick reference model to scale. So I'll go ahead and I'll select this. Make sure again that you have the select components button pressed down or this won't work properly. So I'll select the overall reference model that I want to scale up, and then what it wants is for me to pick 2 points of a known dimension. So if I zoom in here, I can see that I've got 2 grid lines that are spaced 30 feet apart. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll pick a point, and I'll set a perpendicular snap, and I'll make sure I pick to the next point, and then a dialog box opens, and what it's actually anticipating, or what it's asking of me is, okay, what is this dimension supposed to be, or what is this space supposed to be? So I'll come in here and I'll type 30 feet, and I'll click OK, and after a moment, I'll zoom out here a little bit, and we can see that this DXF has scaled up. Now, you might notice that at first I can't see some of the things I could originally see. I can't see the text. There's certain details of it that are missing. Well, that's because of one of 2 reasons. The first main reason would be the work area. So your model has this dashed box around it called a work area where you can stretch that up, and you can basically, with a regular structural model, you can increase what you see or decrease what you see. You can fit the work area down to something like a connection to hide the rest of the building. So what it's doing now is it's hiding some of the elements inside of this reference model. It's very easy to fix. You simply right-click in the model background. First, make sure that you have that yellow or gold border, letting me know that this view is selected. So I'll right-click and I'll choose Fit Work Area to Entire Model. When you do that, it takes that dashed box, stretches it to include all the reference models and the grids and everything in the model, and now I can see all of the details. So again, this is a great way to get an estimate planned out by using the model, because now that this is a object in the model space, I can actually trace it. This is calling for a W24 by 68, so all I'd have to do is come into my beam tool, load up a W24 by 68, and I can come in here and I can pick 2 points to model it in. And I'm basically tracing right on top of the PDF to create my estimate model. And then from this I can generate things like spreadsheets for parts lists and materials lists and things like that. So it's just one way to get my model built. Also, this is great for just collaborating. If I want to make sure that I'm framing up to an existing building, or maybe I'm framing up to concrete that's being done by someone else. Another great idea is for checking. If I'm coming through and I'm checking my model, or I'm having someone check my model and make sure that I got the right parts in, we can turn on in our model view labels telling me what the size is of the shape that I modeled in, 24 by 68. So now I can see and compare to the actual drawing or to the original design drawing and make sure that I'm putting in the right sizes. So there's several uses for this kind of behavior. Now, the first issue that you might have with this is it's actually modeled in down at 0. I placed that reference model at finished floor down in global 0, so that's where it came in at. That's probably not the proper location, it's probably not the optimal location. So there's a couple ways I can get it into the right place. If I go ahead and delete that beam out, Let me collapse my applications and components side pane there. So because I have this modeled in as an object, I can simply move it to the right elevation. So if I know what floor this is supposed to be, and the top of steel here is 16 foot 5.5, I believe. Let me come over here and check real quick. So if I'm just thinking of my 100 foot as a datum, I got 16 foot 5.5. So over here, I'll come and just simply select my reference model. I'll right click. I can use move or move special. I prefer move special because I can just type in here 16 foot 5.5 inches, and then I click move, and it actually moves this reference model up to the proper location. Okay, so that helps me get everything aligned the way it should be. I can also use this reference model to kind of relocate and help get my grid aligned properly. So what I'm going to do is to hit Control P and flip this into like a nice flat plan view, and then I can do the same thing with my grid. I can adjust the grid, or maybe I'll just move the reference file down to first align with the grid. I'll actually do that. So I'll select my plan, right click on it, and I'll just do a simple move this time, and then I'll pick at a grid intersection, and I'll come down here and click at A1, and I'll locate this so that I can kind of get a good starting point for my grid. Okay. Now, there's a couple ways that I can modify the grid, and by the way, you notice that every time I highlight or hover over this reference model, it starts to highlight. If that becomes a bit of an annoyance to you because Tekla thinks you're trying to select it, you just come down here and deselect that reference models button again on the selection toolbar, and now you're not going to accidentally highlight it. You can still snap to it, so I get snap midpoint snaps, I get intersection snaps and things like that. But I just can't highlight it anymore. So I don't get that kind of flashing as it's trying to select or deselect or whatever it's trying to do. Okay, so if I want to start modifying my grid, I can either press my grid button and I can double click on this grid system, type in the dimensions, and then get whatever grid system I need. Also, what I could do is turn on or make sure that the direct modification button is pressed down, and then I can simply drag and drop my grid around. So here I've got a grid line B. I'll just go ahead and I'll delete that. Grid line C looks like it's pretty close on there. Grid line D I can highlight or click on and then simply drag. If I need to snap to something, I can hold down the shift key and then snap to an existing grid like I've done there. So I can do that all over the place to get the overall grid that I want. I can also go to my edit menu, and then here under the grid dropdown I have add grid line. Add grid line, basically I select the grid I want to add a new line to, I pick 2 points to create my line, and I'm good to go. Okay. So in the interest of kind of saving some time and setting this up and also showing you some other things, I'm going to load a pre-built grid system. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to delete my existing grid. I'm going to go to my custom tab where I've already added the save grid to file extension. So I'll go ahead and I'll launch that up. I'm going to create a grid from a saved file. Like I said, I already built this one, and now I've got a grid created. I'll just go ahead and line up my reference model with this grid that I had created earlier, and then we'll continue with some other cool tools and getting our reference models in different angles. Okay, so now I've got this grid and my design or my plan aligned with each other, and I want to show you something else. There are times where you need to insert this at a different angle or in a different plane. Now I already pointed out that I can double click on this and I can go into my reference model side pane and I can change things like the rotation, the scale, the origin, so I can just type in the dimensions of the reference model and where I want to place it. But that's not always very user friendly. There's a lot of measuring involved and checking and things like that. So remember how I said that the insertion of a PDF follows the current work plane. Well, if we change the work plane first, we can affect where this PDF comes in. So let me go ahead and show you that real quick. I'm going to create some views based off of this grid system. So I'm going to go ahead and select this grid, say create view along grid lines. I could have gone ahead and cut some manual views, but again, in the interest of saving time, I'm just going to be based off of my grid system here. So I've got this elevation on grid 8. And the reason I'm showing you this elevation on grid 8, is because I have another sheet in my PDF that's actually going to be an elevation showing some truss framing. Okay, so that might be handy to also bring in, place in this view, and then trace. Okay, so let's go look at that PDF real quick. So I'm going to go to my model folder where I've got a folder where I put my designs. If I scroll through here, let's see, I'll zoom out and see if I can find that sheet here real quick. So this is sheet number 11, and you can see there's a truss elevation right there, C through F, grid line C through F. So what I'll do is I'll tell Tekla that I want to insert this PDF, sheet number 11. Now, if I don't do anything and I just reinsert and I try to pick a point in this elevation view, what'll happen is it'll come in at that point, but still flat, which really isn't helping anyone. So what I'll do is I'll go to my View tab, and under the View tab, I have a lot of options for adjusting my work plane. So Workplane has things like 1 point, 2 points, 3 points, and it's pretty self-explanatory, but just to kind of give you a quick view of what that looks like, 1 point keeps the workplane square to global origin. It simply moves it to a new location, so you can see that there. 2 points keeps it flat, but 2 points allows me to change my X and my Y. So I can start at an origin, I can point in a direction, and now you can see how X is pointing up instead of to the right. So that can be helpful as well. Now 3 points allows me to set X, Y, and Z. So I can pick an origin, I can pick a direction for my positive X, and then I can pick a direction for Y, which actually also adjusts my Z. So I can make a sloping, skewed grid plane. We actually learned how to do this in one of our training classes. So I can pick and I can make all kinds of interesting coordinate systems. Now, for something like this, for elevation on grid 8 that I have here, I can use a tool that just simply automatically aligns my work plane with the current view. So I'll go down here and I'll choose parallel to view plane. I'll click in the background of the view, and you can see how my icon, my coordinate system icon, has changed both in the 3D and the 2D. Now, when I insert a PDF, it's actually going to follow this current plane. So I'll go to my File menu, Import, Insert PDF Document. I'll simply choose the same document, but this time I'll tell it that I want page number 11. Now the scale, I don't know what it is. It's probably a different scale for that particular elevation view, so I'll just use what I've got, and I'll insert it down here at 0. And as you can see, it's come in and it's standing up in that plane. If I zoom out a little bit, let me rotate this, we can actually see there's my grid line 8, and there it is standing up on that particular grid line. So I've aligned it with that view. And then I can use the same scaling tool if I want. So I'll just zoom in here. I'll make sure that I have my buttons pressed to select reference models, and I'm selecting components. Okay, so I'll go over my applications and components catalog. I'll reactivate my reference model scale, make sure that I click on this reference model, and then I'll pick 2 points. So I'll pick here, go over to the next grid line, pick on D. Again, it's going to ask me, what is this distance? Well, as you can see clearly, it's 30 feet. So I'll say OK, and now that's been scaled up as well. Let me go ahead and fit my work area. Okay, so as you can see, it scaled it, but it also kind of moved it up in space, which I didn't really want. So what I'll do is I'll move it back down again. Okay, so I'll go ahead and I'll highlight that. I'll use move, and then I'm just going to go ahead and grab from my grid line C at the foundation, make sure that I have my intersection snap turned on, and I'll move this down to match with my grid C at the foundation. Okay. And now that I've got that lined up, if I needed to come in here and start modeling this truss framing, all of these braces, again, I have something to trace. Whether I'm doing an estimate model, whether I'm checking my previous work, whatever I'm doing, this obviously makes that a lot easier. So you can insert a reference model and then move it to the correct location. You can change your work plane and then insert a reference model. Either one will work. It's whatever you're most comfortable with. Don't forget this reference model scale tool. It definitely makes things a lot easier. So let me go ahead and kind of reset this model. I want to show you some other kind of neat tricks and tools. So I've just kind of removed everything. Let me set my work plane back to the global origin. So I'll say parallel to XYZ plane, and then simply say change, and it will go back to the global origin. Okay, so I just wanted to show you something else, just a real quick way to use some other types of reference models to help lay out your building. So a lot of people use Tekla for the bigger projects, larger buildings, stadiums, things like that. But there's also a lot of people using Tekla just for smaller stuff, and you can utilize these same tools like inserting PDFs to help you with your smaller projects. So I'm going to go ahead and quickly insert another PDF that I have here. I'm going to choose from that same folder, and I'll just go ahead and paste in this reference. Okay, so we can see that it also needs to be scaled. So I'm going to quickly Control P to flip to a plan. I'm going to zoom in here, and then I can see there aren't a lot of dimensions on this because this is a little bit of a renovation to an existing structure. So I'm going to zoom in, look at this one dimension here I've got of 4 foot 11 and a half, and then I'm going to use my reference scale tool again. So I'll double click, make sure I pick my reference. Again, I'm just looking down to check I've got reference models selected and select components on. So I'll pick my reference model, I'll pick 2 points. When it prompts me, I'll say this is supposed to be 4 foot 11 and 1/2, and I'll say OK. So again, it scales up for me and just makes it a little bit easier to get there. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and quickly move this. I'm not going to be real too picky about where my grid is for this particular example, since we've already seen that. So I'll just go ahead and say you should be here. Okay, so we'll line up a quick grid. And now we've got this plan kind of laid out. Now this particular building was renovating a bathroom, and one of the things that we wanted to show, or our customer wanted to show, was not only the wall and the structural framing that they were responsible for, but because this is a bathroom, there's certain pieces of plumbing and things like that that they wanted to include and show on their drawings. Now obviously, because we're working in a 3D model, we want to see this stuff in a 3D environment. And that's where interaction with some of our other softwares or some other 3D modeling softwares becomes really, really powerful and really fun in Tekla. So, as you may know, SketchUp is part of the Trimble family, as are we. So we have a really great integration with SketchUp. So it's possible for you to go to the Sketchup Warehouse and find different types of objects that you can insert into your Tekla model. I've gone ahead and already set up a custom button on my tab here, or on my ribbon here, where I can jump straight to the 3D warehouse. And when you're here, you can search for all kinds of things. You can also simply just do an internet search for SketchUp Warehouse and find your way here. As you can see, there's a lot of different types of models. You can do a search for different things. I've done searches already for grading and grab different types of ornamental grading and stair grading and things like that. So it's a really great place to come and find different types of things. So back here in my Tekla model, what I can do is use this, as I said before, to trace. So let's go ahead and throw in a real quick wall panel. So I'm going to go ahead, and I've measured this in the past. I believe it's roughly a 7-inch wide wall, and I'm going to offset this to the left. And I'm just going to go ahead and trace just kind of a generic tracing of the wall in this restroom. So I've created now a wall panel, and if I needed to, I can create a copy of this reference up higher. It says here that the ceiling height is at 9 feet, so let's just say, without having a full set of plans in here, that the actual structural framing, we have some channels being run on the ceiling here, should be at 10 feet. So I'll go ahead and I will copy this up 10 feet. Okay, so now I have 2 copies of this particular reference model, one that I can make my framing on, and one that I can make some of the plumbing that we see down here, like my sinks and my toilets and whatnot. So if I needed to, again, I can just trace this stuff at the ceiling. Let me go ahead and turn off that selection of the reference model so you don't get that flashing behavior. But I can go to my Steel tab, I can load up a channel. This channel is a C5 by 6.7, so I'll go ahead and type in C5 by 6.7. I can always choose that from my catalog if need be. And then I'll go ahead and I'll just trace that, just real simply, kind of laying out where that channel should be. Now, as we can see here, that looks like it's supposed to be towed up. So I'll just go ahead and adjust my position, and I'll say the front should be facing up, and we want to go ahead and center this on that line. Okay, so you can use this to model in your steel framing, to mock it up. Always check your dimensions afterwards, of course, but just like a larger project, you can lay out the rough framework. Now, I was talking about setting up different types of reference models for things like your plumbing, because you want your drawings to accurately reflect what the final product is going to look like. So I'm going to come in here to my reference models. I'm going to hide the high reference model. And just to kind of give you an example of what's possible, I've already gone ahead and downloaded some sample toilets from the Sketchup Warehouse. I found one that worked well, so I can go ahead and insert it here. But just like I said before, I need to be concerned about the orientation of that part, like where is it going to come in. When you insert a reference model, you don't have the option like you do with a PDF to click a location. You come up here to reference models, you click add model, and then you have to type in right away, do I want to come in at the model origin, and then I type in the dimensions to offset it, or do I want to set it to the current work plane? So when you're inserting a reference model directly, it's helpful to sometimes set the work plane first. So I'll use those tools I talked about earlier. I already know that this toilet is going to point in the positive X direction. So what I'm going to do is change my work plane to set an origin and a direction for the current positive X direction. So I'll go ahead and I'll activate work plane using 2 points, and I'll say here's my origin and here's my positive X. Okay, so now I've set my current work plane, and now I can add a model. So I'll tell this reference model to follow the current work plane. I'll browse to my model folder where I happen to have this already saved. And when I open and add model, it comes in exactly where I need it to come in this model space. And then when I go ahead and create my drawings later, I can include reference models so that my customer can see exactly where framing and other types of supports are going to clear the plumbing objects inside of this bathroom. So the SketchUp Warehouse can be used for all kinds of things. You can insert things like this that I've just showed you. We can insert, let me go ahead and change this back to my model. Oh, it was already at model. So I'll go to some saved stuff that I have. One of those being a flatbed truck. So I'll go ahead and I'll insert this flatbed truck. Click add model. So if you're trying to use Tekla to plan your job site, something like this might be very helpful, where you can set up and save different types of equipment, lay down areas, crane locations, all kinds of things using these types of reference models. Again, they can either be moved into place after they've been inserted, or you just change your work plane first and then set them up. So I hope this has been very helpful to you. You can leave some comments below if you have any questions, or also you can always reach out to our service team. They're always happy to help with this and more. So thanks for watching.